bigger than the Target logo.
That's some Joe shit.
It wasn't bad.
Definitely.
You was on a video game too, right? But that's great. At least you could check off some things, right? It's pretty cool.
I'm gonna start shooting at you.
I do not know how you pulled it off, Joe, but you did it. You got everybody engaging about Sasha the same way people used to engage about Melissa Ford back in the day. And I am not even going to draw comparisons between the two today. She genuinely had me laughing multiple times throughout this episode, and I am just going to give honest reasons why rather than forcing an opinion either way. First thing, she can roll with the punches. They caught her on camera clearly eyeing Ish and called her out on it directly. Multiple women have been put in that exact same position before and folded immediately, acting like it never happened and distancing themselves from it. Sasha did the opposite. She owned it, laughed about it, and kept it moving. That is a green flag on a podcast. She also took several shots at Joe throughout the episode, light jabs that had me genuinely laughing because she plays the role of someone who has no idea about Joe's history and legacy. So as she is discovering his accomplishments in real time, she is treating him like he's the new guy, which is why he said he's gonna start firing back. She does not realize she's the junior person in this dynamic, but she's playing it perfectly. She lets the jokes land on her without cutting anyone off or getting defensive. Now, eventually people are going to come for her, and honestly they already were in the Patreon comments, but from Joe's perspective, he absolutely won this. When 65 to 70% of your comments are focused on one specific person, that person is an asset, regardless of whether the sentiment is positive or negative. Engagement is engagement. I'll be honest, I have called for Sasha's head multiple times, but at some point you have to just tell the truth. I'm not crowning her the greatest podcaster in the world. I'm not even saying she's built for podcasting long term, but every single time I have watched her on the show, I have seen genuine improvement. She's been leading topics, holding her ground even when the guys tried to make her look uninformed, and pushing conversations she actually cares about. If she builds a real interest base around her authentic topics, Joe wins even bigger. Either way, the Sasha experiment is working. One thing I did notice in this episode though, Imani made a point to look up in real time whether Sasha was actually checking out Ish, and then he turned around and tried to play it cool by doing something similar himself, which is interesting considering he has previously called out others for the same behavior around her. That dynamic caught my attention and I filed it away. But overall, Sasha came on, held her own, rolled with the jokes, laughed when it was appropriate, jumped in when she needed to, and already has a love triangle subplot developing on the show. If you were Joe, what more could you ask for? We've been watching this show for years, and the audience, myself included, tends to hate anything new on principle. We said Melissa didn't talk enough, she got frustrated over time and kept gravitating toward the same gender dynamics conversations. She's gone. Now she got replaced by someone people say talks too much. There's genuinely no winning with this audience. And it's worth pointing out that we were getting frustrated at Melissa for taking a woman's perspective on these gender topics, but Joe keeps bringing those same topics to the show. And every position he takes is naturally from a man's point of view. So how are we going to hold Melissa to a different standard? Mona does the same thing in her own way.
Any woman who steps into that kind of role is naturally going to bring a woman's perspective to the table. That's just reality. And when the dynamic runs in the opposite direction, most of us can recognize it pretty quickly for what it is. What's starting to concern me is that I'm beginning to see that same pattern with Joe, even in the moments where he's actively trying to appear balanced and neutral. And that brings me to the pandering conversation, because honestly, few things frustrate me more than watching someone who is supposed to be offering genuine analysis consistently position themselves on one side of every discussion, to the point where it stops looking like belief and starts looking like performance. That's what pandering is to me. It's not just having a perspective. Everyone has a perspective. It's when you lean so deliberately and so consistently in one direction that the lean itself becomes the message. You're not sharing what you actually think anymore. You're signaling whose side you're on. And after a while, that becomes impossible to ignore. I'm calling it like I see it, and I think a lot of you watching right now are seeing the exact same thing, whether you want to say it out loud or not. But let me shift gears here. because I want to talk about Sasha, and I want to be upfront. Say what you want about why I'm coming around on her. Call me biased if that makes you feel better. But I genuinely think she has been a solid addition to the show at this point. More than that, I think Joe made the right call bringing her in, and I believe he's going to have that confirmed the moment he sits down and actually looks at the engagement numbers she's been generating. Here's the thing that people keep missing. The ones who say they can't stand her are still talking about her constantly. Every moment she has on screen, every opinion she shares, every reaction she gives, it's all generating conversation. That's not a failure. That's exactly what you want from a new addition to any platform. The women in the comments are still pushing back. The men are gradually, steadily coming around. And honestly, that shift was entirely predictable from the beginning. When someone keeps showing up with consistency, keeps smiling, keeps being present and personable without forcing it, the initial resistance from the audience has a way of softening over time. That's not manipulation, that's just human nature. Familiarity builds comfort, comfort builds acceptance, and acceptance eventually turns into genuine appreciation if the person continues to show up authentically. So here's what I expect happens next. The women in the audience are going to start calling out the men for warming up to someone they feel hasn't demonstrated enough intellectual depth or substance to deserve that kind of reception. That criticism is coming, it's only a matter of time. But here's my honest read on that. I think that reaction, that tension between the male and female audience responses, is actually part of what Joe built this whole thing around from the beginning. The conversation itself is the content. The debate about whether she belongs is driving the very engagement that proves she belongs.
And if she's continuing to appear on more episodes rather than quietly fading out after a few appearances, something is clearly working. You can question the strategy, you can debate the reasoning, but the results are difficult to argue with when they're sitting right there in front of you. I've been through this exact cycle before, and I want to share that because I think it adds some real context here. When Imani first started appearing on the Patreon episodes, I could not stand watching him on screen. I'm being completely honest about that. Something about his early appearances just didn't sit right with me, and I couldn't fully explain why. But then, episode by episode, I watched him get more comfortable, more natural, more genuinely himself, rather than a version of himself that was trying to fit into a space that didn't quite feel like home yet. And eventually, I reached a point where I wasn't just tolerating his presence, I was actively telling him he needed to start building his own content outside of the pod entirely, because I thought he had something real to offer on his own platform. That exact same arc is what I'm starting to recognize with Sasha right now. She is in that early phase, the acclimation period, where everything feels slightly uncomfortable and the audience is still making up its mind. But today's episode showed genuine signs of her finding her lane on the show, not forcing it, not overcompensating, just starting to settle in. And that's actually the hardest part of this whole process. Once someone gets through that phase, the trajectory tends to take care of itself. I want to hear from all of you. Let me know what you thought about today's episode if you watched it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's actually talk about it. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. You know how we do things around here. And make sure you head over to Patreon because I have a special episode over there that is genuinely worth your time. Something is developing and I want to work through it together with the people who are locked in over there. I'll see you all soon. Peace.